Welcome to the SportsPro Podcast.
Hi everyone, and welcome once again to the SportsPro Podcast. My name is Eoin Connolly. I'm the editor-at-large at SportsPro. Hope you're well. So then, the group stages are over, the round of 16 has been halved, but we are still on our journey through UEFA Euro 2020, joining England and Switzerland and the rest on the way to the quarterfinals of a competition that's really caught light in the last week. And this time, we're going to be looking at fans and audiences. A little bit later on, we'll be hearing from Jonty Whitehead, the co-founder and president of SportBuff, about the possibilities of gamification in sports media. But before that, we have one of the most talked about partnerships around the tournament, featuring one of the most talked about companies anywhere over the last 18 months. TikTok got on board with UEFA only this year, and SportsPro Deputy Editor Sam Karp has been talking to James Rothwell, TikTok's head of marketing for EMEA, about what it's been doing to connect with fans and with football over the last few weeks. James describes how TikTok hopes to bring the fan conversation to its platform as part of a longer-term commitment to the sport, and how it's measuring the impact of Euro 2020 on its community. He also helps to identify the type of content that's captured the imagination so far, from user-generated posts and trends to Ed Sheeran's live-streamed concert, and he lays out some of TikTok's policies on abuse of speech and maps out its plans for the future. Very quick reminder before we start that SportsPro APAC is next week as we're talking. That's on the 7th and 8th of July, so this is your final call for it here. It's a conference looking at transformation and rebuilding momentum across the APAC region. Some great speakers and fascinating sessions lined up, and you can find out all about that at sportsproapac.com, sportsproapac.com. That's going to have a bit of a knock-on effect to our podcast output next week. We're going to be wrapping up after each day of the event, and we're then expecting to bring you an end-of-tournament review of everything that's gone down at UEFA Euro 2020 towards the end of the week, rather than in the regular Thursday slot. We'll probably be recording before the final as well, so you'll have to promise not to spoil that for us. And one more piece of news to bring your attention to: Matt Rogan, the host of the excellent Playbook series of podcasts, among a great many other things in his career, has a new book out that he's written with Kerry Potter. All to Play For: How Sport Can Reboot Our Future is available now, and I'm going to be talking to Matt about it on a special edition of the podcast that you'll be able to catch imminently. It's coming out the day after the one you're listening to right now, so you're getting it tomorrow if you're keen and you listen to these on the day of release, and whenever you want it if you're listening to it after that, if that makes sense. Anyway, something that we should be able to make a bit more sense of over the next half an hour is TikTok's relationship with UEFA Euro 2020. Let's hand over to James Rothwell and Sam Karp.
You're listening to the SportsPro Podcast.
James Rothwell, Head of Marketing across Europe, the Middle East and Africa for TikTok. Welcome to the SportsPro Podcast.
Thanks very much, Sam. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you with us, especially at this point in time, because we're obviously in the middle of Euro 2020, which TikTok is, of course, a sponsor of, marking the first time that the company has been a sponsor of an event of this scale. Obviously, that deal was announced in early February. I think it was pretty much exactly 4 months before the first game kicked off, actually. First of all, I'm quite keen to hear a little bit about how the deal came about, because I suppose a lot of people became familiar with TikTok over the past year because of the pandemic, the situation we've been in. So, was it kind of an opportunistic move in a way, or had it been in the pipeline even before COVID?
Yeah, I would describe it as a situation where the stars aligned. We talk all the time in our marketing group about moving at the speed of culture, and I would say that this sponsorship has definitely put that to the test. We've really had to sprint to get this one out of the door, and it's been a wild ride and a lot of fun. Realistically, the tournament being pushed back by a year opened the door for us to come on board as a sponsor. It's kind of easy to forget that TikTok has only really existed in Europe for just over 2 years, and the last 18 months in particular has been a really meteoric rise. So I think if we had been in the pack of sponsors talking to UEFA in 2018, 2019, we simply wouldn't have reached the scale or perhaps even the stature as a brand to work on a sponsorship of this magnitude. The growth that we've experienced over the last 18 months has been extraordinary. We're very, very proud of it. I think our goal is to become the most relatable brand on the internet. And as we've grown, as we've started engaging with more audiences, and as we've really committed to Europe as a region, it became very evident that to play the role in culture that we want to play, we have to show up in football. Football is one of the lifebloods of European culture. I think Euro 2020 and all the Euro tournaments are a celebration of culture. And we saw a window of opportunity where the Euros launching this summer with the region coming back offline was something that we were just so excited to be part of. So, we started talking to UEFA in September 2020. We spent, a couple of months working up the structure of the deal. We profile very differently as a sponsor because we're also a content publisher, we're a media platform, we have social edges. So the role that we can play in the broader entertainment landscape around the Euros makes us very different from other brands. And we look to structure our relationship accordingly. And hopefully you've seen some of the amazing work that not just UEFA, but all of the associations, players, pundits have been doing on TikTok. I think we've really been able to create an ecosystem around football. So, as I said, I think the stars have aligned. The extra year gave us an opportunity to come in and structure this deal as we would want to structure it. And since we announced on February, we've been moving pretty quickly.
Yeah. I wanted to come on to that because obviously a lot of the sponsors were announced, well in advance of this, and I suppose some brands spend, years planning for an activation around an event like this, whereas, as I said, you guys only announced this in February, so you only started talking in September. Just how quickly did everything have to come together from a sort of planning and activation standpoint?
I would say we announced on February 11th. We felt very good about the relationship we were building with UEFA from Christmas onwards. So realistically, we've had 6 months to plan our campaign, our content activations, our broader relationship with football. So, not a tremendous amount of time, but we have to move at that speed as an organization. Our product is culture, it's zeitgeist, community. It's very difficult for us to anticipate what someone will want from TikTok in 18 months. So we have to be nimble and agile as a team. If you can think back to January and February time when we launched our Sea Shanty campaign, the amazing story of Nathan Evans, a postman from Scotland, being discovered on TikTok, we identified that trend on a Tuesday, and the TV campaign launched on primetime TV on a Saturday night. So, we're a marketing team that can go from trend to TV in 4 days, which is almost impossible. But we have a real confidence in our visual identity, our tone of voice, the way that we like to place content and creators at the heart of our branding communications. So we have a playbook that works well for us. So we were always confident about the way that we could execute the creative, the brands, the media components of the sponsorship. I think what's really taken us by a very pleasant surprise is just the way that football as an ecosystem has really embraced TikTok. Players, teams, associations, onboarding. The fan conversation has gone from strength to strength. The level of creativity that we're seeing from our users around football has just been mind-blowing. And, the real milestone for me is when we announced this partnership on February 11th, #football had 70 billion views on TikTok. Now, 4 months later, we're over 130 billion views. So we've doubled in 4 months. We have almost every major club team in Europe on the platform. We have many, many national players. So we probably weren't ready to be embraced as we have by fans in the sport. So for that side of the bargain to happen so quickly has been pretty special. But as a marketing group, yeah, I think we have the infrastructure and the appetite in place to be able to move at that speed.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting to hear, and I'm going to come back to sort of some of the, I suppose, maybe some of your favorite examples of how players and teams have been using the platform. But before we do come on to that, I wanted to ask you, because in recent years it's not been unusual to see major sporting events, whether it be like the Olympics or something, or the World Cup or the Euros, strike kind of content partnerships with, I suppose, new media platforms, whether it be something like Snapchat or Twitter. But there aren't that many examples of where we've seen one of those companies actually sponsor the event. Why did it feel like that route was right for you guys? Is it because you are kind of still relatively new, so there was kind of that awareness side to it as well, or was it purely because, as you've kind of said already, that you really can contribute to the broader kind of conversation around the tournament anyway?
I think there are multiple paths into a sporting event like this. The reality is, we've seen the football community and multiple partners migrating to TikTok over the last year. The fact we were at 70 billion views for hashtag football before we announced speaks to that. But for us, this is we wanted to make a very visible commitment to the sport. We wanted to announce our arrival to football fans across Europe. But we also wanted to leave no stone unturned in making sure that we maximise the opportunity. And of course, we already had great football content on TikTok, but we wanted to take a very forensic, ambitious approach to what we could do. UEFA is launching its first ever live streams on TikTok, and that work has been incredible. The access that the deal has given us to some of the most iconic moments of the Euros over the last 25 years, and the way that we've been able to utilize that in our brand advertising, is a real privilege. And I think we've executed some of the best work we've done because of that access. I think showing up in the moments that matter as a brand, delivering just a moment of surprise and delight during halftime of a tough game with our sponsorship package, because we're able to integrate into media, but also, making that commitment to the sport as a whole, and the way that that's opened the door for us to tackle football from the Euros all the way through to grassroots. We felt like it was an appropriate step to take. And as I said, we've been absolutely delighted with the response that we've had so far. So, you only get to do something for the first time once, and we wanted to do it properly.
Sure. In the announcement, it said that you were going to be launching a load of features for the tournament. Obviously, augmented reality effects, hashtag challenges. I saw the World in Motion one before the tournament, which was really good fun. TikTok lives and sounds. How have you? I know that you mentioned already that you kind of doubled the views of the hashtag football. The football hashtag, but how have you seen people engage with those things and the platform more broadly during the tournament? Is there anything in particular that users have really been buying into?
Yeah, for sure. I think, we're looking to identify the impact of this campaign across all corners of our business. So, the marquee live streams that we've had so far have been really special. And I think the pinnacle of that was the Ed Sheeran concert on Friday night. Just an incredible moment for the music community, an incredible moment for TikTok. And for Ed Sheeran to host the halftime show of the Euros exclusively on our platform, it's just so exciting. And I thought the event as a whole was incredible. We invested very early on in giving fans the tools to express themselves in and around the tournament, whether that's being able to turn anything into a football for keepy uppies with an AR feature, to allowing fans to do their own trophy tour with an AR feature, to having a football hub within the product where you can not just follow scores and news and team updates, but also, millions and millions of TikToks and just an incredible UGC conversation. We really wanted to do this soup to nuts. We've invested in some brilliant content partnerships. So, from product to content to brands, we've tried to show up everywhere that we can. So to answer your question, of course, we're monitoring the overall consumption and engagement of football content on TikTok, but we've also been blown away by our creation rates, new consumers coming to the platform, the way that our brand has permeated social conversation, not just within our user base, but more broadly. I think TikTok has really become unmissable as a brand during the Euros. And I think our share of voice during such an important moment for the region has been great. So from brand to content creation and consumption to product innovation, so far we're really, really happy with the relationship that we've built with UEFA and the way that we've showed up during the tournament.
When you sort of talk about it like that, it makes me think a lot about this kind of, the second screen experience that a lot of people go on about in relation to watching live sport these days. And you mentioned earlier as well that you guys kind of want to be the brand of choice. How much of that is that playing into your thinking as well? The fact that I suppose, especially with this tournament, more than any other Euros in the past, people are probably going to be watching at home. They're going to be on their phones while they're watching, and kind of, essentially wanting to sort of own that second screen experience yourselves. Is that kind of something that you've sort of put front of mind in this strategy as well?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, I am just a religious sports fan myself. I absolutely love the Euros. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure there is a replacement for live sport. Either watching in the stadium or watching on TV. Nothing is as captivating and as exhilarating as watching your team play live. So, there's only so much any second screen experience can compete with that. I just think that's the reality of sport. It's unmissable. I think what's so exciting about the way that a brand and a product like TikTok can enter the space is providing commentary, color, context on something you love from so many different perspectives. I think the way that we've brought communities together for the Euros has been really interesting. I think we've given fans a different way of expressing themselves. I think when you're desperately waiting between 5 games for the next England match, we're giving you a completely new stream of content to engage with, to get closer to the players and the team, to meet fans. So I think we're building a conversation around the tournament. We're allowing it to live on in between games. I don't think we're competing with the live experience. I think we're building during it, but most importantly, everything around it. And our commitment to football won't end after the Euros. We're hoping that this is an ecosystem that we can continue to build. So second screen for sure, but for me, it's the broader community conversation ecosystem that we've seen emerging over the last couple of months and what we can do for that in the long term, which is really where our focus is.
Yeah, for sure. And we sort of touched on it already. You talked about the fact that this has obviously kind of allowed TikTok to be part of really memorable moments, and obviously feed into sort of wider conversation as well. And I think about, if you think back to Euro 16, there are sort of some images which stand out from it. So, for example, the Iceland celebration with their fans is something that naturally sort of fed onto social and is something that a lot of people adopted, and you'd think is something that would have easily caught on with TikTok at the time. And I said I was going to ask you this earlier, but are there any sort of specific examples you can think of from the first couple of weeks of the tournament where there is something that has caught on, or there is a particular piece of content that maybe one of the players or one of the teams has done that has really resonated with fans?
I think we've already had some absolutely iconic moments in this tournament. I mean, a very sad start in the opening weekend with Christian Eriksen, but actually a reminder of unity in football and very powerful images of fans coming together. And I think Denmark has become the darling of the tournament and everyone's second team. And I think that was, a very arresting start. Bale's halftime talk in the huddle was pretty rousing. The passion and emotion of the Italian players in the lineup, German celebrations, showing hearts and a commitment to the LGBT community, and really kind of reinforcing that the sport is for everyone. We're 2 weeks in, and those to me, you've got a roster of just incredible moments. And actually, the way that we've built out our brand campaign is modular, and it looks to couple great content and footage from the tournament with amazing UGC. And we're pretty excited about the way that we're going to be able to integrate some of those moments into our brand communications as we look to round out the rest of the tournament. So yeah, I think really, really iconic moments already.
I know that you mentioned there the celebrations of the German players and the sort of reminder that that football is for everyone. And I know that one of the things that you guys did, kind of as an extension of your relationship with UEFA, is partner with them on their Sign for an Equal Game campaign, which is all about joining the fight against discrimination. Can you just kind of elaborate a little bit more on that, and sort of what that partnership with them entails, and what kind of work you've been doing around that?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started exploring the opportunity to partner with UEFA for Euro 2020, our focus was really on what bringing football to TikTok would mean for us. And I think since we announced the partnership, our focus has been much more, how can we bring the best of TikTok to football? You know, if you cut us down the middle, our product is community and culture. I think our values of creativity, positivity, we might be the last sunny corner of the internet, community. We really wanted to bring that to the sports, and the opportunity to work with UEFA on Sign for an Equal Game really reinforces all of those brand values, and the way that we can give our creators and our community a voice, the way that we can provide a media platform that reaches hundreds of millions of people to support UEFA in sharing that message, and really give them a platform to drive adoption and participation. It was a complete no-brainer for us, and we're very, very proud to be partnering on it.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it's obviously pretty pertinent at the moment too, because obviously the past year has really shone a light on hate speech and the abuse that players do receive on their social platforms. Just kind of, I guess, more broadly speaking, just a question about how you guys kind of monitor that, and sort of what you sort of are doing to. I guess the focus predominantly has been on platforms like Twitter and Instagram first and foremost, but just interested to hear kind of what you guys do on that side of things as well, to make sure that the experience that players are having on your platform is an enjoyable one.
I think trust and safety is such an important focus for us. Again, our product is built around creativity and connection. And to be creative, you have to feel safe. It really is as simple as that. So we spend a tremendous amount of time, energy, and resource on moderation, our community guidelines, and the overall experience that users have on TikTok, because that's our business model. It's our reason to exist. Beyond the Sign for an Equal Game partnership, we also launched our own Swipe Out Hate campaign in the lead up to the tournament. My perspective on this, and I, speak for the values of the company on this front, is that, there is zero tolerance for hate speech in football, and there is absolutely zero tolerance for hate speech on TikTok. We are a community driven product. We stand for inclusion and positivity and connection. And we wanted to make that very, very clear going into the tournament. And again, it's really important that we bring our own brand values and our organizational values into football and stand by them. And again, over the weekend with our perimeter boards going out, we repivoted our main brand communications from where fans play to where all fans play. You'll see more of that rolling out over the next couple of days. But we intend to stand by our community and for positive connection on the internet at all costs. It's incredibly important to us.
For sure, yeah, that's good to hear. And just going back to kind of some of the stuff that you've been doing around the tournament, I know you alluded to last Friday's concert with Ed Sheeran, performing at Portman Road, home of his club Ipswich Town, who he'll be sponsoring next season. It's interesting. It's interesting to see, because obviously a lot of people don't necessarily associate TikTok with live stuff. It's typically the short form sort of viral moments, I suppose. When you are doing these live streams, what's the purpose of those? How do you find that kind of stuff performs? Does it drive a lot of people to the platform? Does it have to be a sort of situation where you do have someone like Ed Sheeran working with you to make it worthwhile?
I think we will continue to invest in product features that enable creativity, whether it's an AR effect, a sticker, a hashtag challenge, or a live. Everything we do is to give our creator community a voice and to help them create content that will entertain and inspire our user base. There are obviously tentpole moments within that strategy. Friday was just incredible. I couldn't take my eyes off the stream for an hour. I watched it again on Saturday morning. I just thought it was an amazing feat of live streaming and tech. And I think speaks to just the quality of content on TikTok. We're driven by culture and conversation, and our live product creates an opportunity for consumers to be there when it happens, in the moment, to connect over shared interests and passions. And I think this was just an amazing moment for us in the context of an already really exciting partnership with UEFA. So really, we just want to connect consumers to the content that they love, and we'll continue to invest in creative tools that enable that, live being a brilliant example.
I know you've kind of spoken a little bit about, I suppose, how you're sort of measuring the success of this partnership already in terms of the number of people that are coming to the platform during the tournament. But also, when you think of, well, I suppose when people think of TikTok, I think they probably still think of a platform that is predominantly used by Gen Z, 16 to 24-year-olds. But as I suppose, as I alluded to earlier, the last year has maybe changed that a little bit. You've had videos of dads participating in lockdown challenges, for example, and given the fact that the Euros do have such a global audience, people of different ages watching, do you feel like this has also opened you up to a new audience in a way?
I do. To your point, we've been on an amazing journey over the last year. If you think about some of the greatest trends that have broken out on TikTok, from sea shanties, old naval songs, to baking, to cranberry juice, to families coming together to dance to blinding lights. These trends cut through demographics, so cut through audiences, they bring people together. And as I said, our goal is to become the most relatable brand on the internet, which means we need to be for everyone and appeal to all taste profiles and all passions and interests. Of course, I think the Euros allows us to speak to multiple audiences, but really, it's a commitment to football, which is such an important cultural aspect of Europe, and our ability to celebrate with the region when we've got a lot to be hopeful for. But even with the Euros, we're still bringing the best of our brand values, our creativity. So we're staying very true to who we are. But I think the way that our product is built, the way that our community is to come together over shared interests, whether we're working on music or sport or gaming or entertainment, we hope that we're just investing to create content and connect communities with the interests they love.
James, just before I let you go, just one last question, because I'm conscious that we are coming up to half an hour now. But yeah, I mean, I can almost anticipate what your answer is going to be based on how this conversation's gone. But looking beyond the Euros, which might be hard to do given that we've still got a couple of weeks left. There's so much left to happen, including obviously Germany, England, as we spoke about before we actually came online. Is this partnership a precursor to more from you guys in football? Can we expect to see similar stuff happening down the line, whether it be with other events or other teams as well?
Yeah, well, before this podcast goes out, I hope we haven't both had our hearts broken by Germany on Tuesday night. So touch wood and fingers crossed. But as I said, we're making a long-term commitment to the football community. We've been delighted by what we've seen on the Euros. And absolutely, this is not a one and done. I think there are multiple ways that we can continue to invest in the sport and to show up for football fans. Some will be iconic big moments like the Euros, and some will be grassroots and a very, very TikTok approach to driving a creative conversation around the sport. But when the tournament ends on July the 11th, football will still be a major focus for us, and we're really excited about what we're going to be able to do over the next couple of years.
Awesome. Well, that's very exciting to hear, James. And thank you very much again for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Hello, I'm Matt Rogan. I've spent my career creating and scaling businesses in sports and entertainment. And now I'm talking to smart leaders inside and outside sport to get their ideas on managing change and building towards a better future. You can listen in on the Playbook Podcast, a collection of candid, agenda-free conversations full of practical advice your company can work with. Get your new episodes right here on the SportsPro feed and check out the rest of the series wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the SportsPro Podcast. Thanks to Sam Karp and James Rothwell for their time just now. Up next, we're taking on the future of sports content from another angle. SportBuff has been working with broadcasters and rights holders in sports, gaming and betting, including the likes of FIFA, FIBA, Formula E and ATA Football, to add layers of interactivity to their live and on-demand video. And we're going to be hearing from Jonty Whitehead, the former beIN, Sky Sports and Fox Sports executive, who is now the co-founder and president of SportBuff, about the opportunities that come with gamifying the sports viewing experience and getting back control of the second screen. He spoke to me about the integration of new products and services that engage fans and provide alternative revenue streams, how this generation of interactivity differs from what's gone before it and what the implications of that will be, the lessons from viewing trends on Twitch and in the esports space, and more besides. I'm going to leave you with that and thank you once again for listening. Enjoy what's coming up. I'll speak to you again very soon.
This is the SportsPro Podcast.
Jonty Whitehead, founder and president of SportBuff. Welcome to the SportsPro Podcast.
Good morning.
Jonty, it's great to have you with us. We're going to be talking about interactivity and the kind of the new two-way relationship between fans and sports content, including live matches and live events. But let's just set a bit of context first. I'll give you an opportunity to introduce SportBuff to our audience and just give everyone a sense of what it is that you guys are working on.
Yes, thank you, Eoin. So SportBuff is a layer that sits over the top of wherever video is produced, the video player, and we are an interactive layer that allows gamification, interaction, the chance to gamify the experience. The more that you interact, the more points you earn. The more right you are, the more points you earn. And you see yourself within a leaderboard. That competition element within yourself is sparked, and you're gamifying the experience. And it's a way of bringing in all the content that is happening elsewhere. As a former linear broadcaster, you'd spend a lot of money on rights, and yet the conversation about the great goal, what was said in your studio, is happening elsewhere on another platform. And what SportBuff allows you to do is bring that content back in across your rights, across your property, because you paid the money for them.
And you're working with a few different broadcasters in sport and across the kind of the gaming sector as well, and we'll get into that too. But why is this happening now? This conversation that people are having about personalization and gamification of sports streams. As you see it, what's the problem beyond the one that you just explained there that broadcasters are needing to solve here?
I think there's a disenfranchised feeling from a younger generation. You only have to spend any time. And this is not just a younger generation, but it's a modern viewer. The time that you spend watching that lean back experience is cut down. You're on your phone, you're on your device, and if you're alienating those fans, that next generation, and when you think about it, Gen Z in the US is something like 68 million people. It's the biggest demographic in that region, and if they're used to interacting with their media at a really high level, and suddenly, if broadcasters, if rights holders aren't providing that means of interaction, of getting their voice heard, of feeling part of a community, then they're not going to be your next subscribers. They're not going to be signing up for your pay-per-view event. So it's imperative now that we cater for this next generation, because if we don't, 10 years from now, the landscape is going to look very, very different. And 20 years from now, even more so. And funny enough, just this week, I had a a catch-up conversation with David Hill, the ex-chairman of Fox Sports out in the US, and we were talking about this issue that's facing so many broadcasters, so many rights holders, and the people that solve it are going to really open big revenue, but revenue that's also available to the broadcaster, the data that's then available to the broadcaster. So on many levels, it's something that has to happen. It will happen, and we believe, we know that SportBuff are leading by example with a best-in-class solution.
How much of this is coming from within the sports audience? So changes within the sports audience. You mentioned second screens there, and the fact that people are kind of interacting during a traditional linear broadcast, but they're just doing it on another device or on another service or what have you. And how much of it is coming from other types of audience, from whether it's gaming or esports or online betting, or audiences where people are used to playing some part in the content that they're watching?
I think it's a combination of two things. Just the way that media has developed in all aspects, it becomes easy access. It's very easy to switch on Twitter and get your latest news feed. It's very easy to check what your bet is doing. It's very easy to look at what your mates are doing on Instagram. But that doesn't help a broadcaster. That doesn't help keeping eyes on your platform, eyes on your show, exposing them to your advertisements, to your sponsorship. So by bringing that experience back across the main content is what we aim to do here at SportBuff. So it sort of it amuses me sometimes when you see traditional broadcasters sending people away in effect from their platform. Let us know what you feel on Twitter. Please give us your views. Vote on this poll on Twitter. When the technology now exists on digital devices to make that to enable that to happen across actually that premium content. A second screen experience, which is the way that this has developed in the last few years. You're still taking your eyes off the main product. You're moving people away to a companion app, but surely you want to keep those eyes focused on what everyone wants to see. That conversation about that great goal, that should happen here. If you want to compare Zlatan's overhead kick to Rooney's overhead kick and Percy's, that conversation can happen within full view of the actual premium event that you're watching.
And how much are we preparing ground here as well for other ways to use that kind of interactive relationship, whether that's integrating betting streams or integrating merchandising? Is that a conversation that you're a part of, or is that something that you think is going to happen separately, but that broadcasters need to be aware of how they get direct monetization, e-commerce, that kind of thing in?
Yeah, we're very much a part of that conversation, because this technology, it's adaptable to everything that you just spoke about there. So, bringing that gaming, that betting experience over the top of it. Of course, there's massive utility that we can prove in that aspect, but also just in effect the merchandising. We're enabling people, broadcasters, rights holders, to understand the habits of those particular fans, so that if they're essentially watching always Man United games, they're interacting with Man United games, they're a Man United supporter, that then if there's a play on merchandise, if Fernandes scores a goal for Manchester United, you can serve that merchandising content after the goal. You said, do you want a signed shirt? Do you want the opportunity to win tickets to the next home game? All that becomes obvious because you're building layers of data on the people that are interacting with it, and it's that data. It's important to say is the partner's data, so that we have a frictionless signing on, because we sit within their platforms. So that means that they're building a level of data on those participants that they wouldn't naturally or normally be able to receive.
Let's dive in a bit to some of the things that you've been doing with different partners. I mean, what's a good introductory project that you guys have been working on? Because you know it's quite a broad range that you're doing across esports and across traditional sports, across emerging sports that might have a more mobile first audience. But where would you start if you were to say, right, this is what this looks like?
Funny enough, that as it's sort of front of mind, is we've just done a deal with the NWSL from the US American League, and we're across a game this weekend. So they've had the foresight and the initiative to put games globally on the Twitch channel. We have a Twitch extension that any caster on Twitch can just switch on, and it allows gamification. It allows a rich layer of data to be delivered. So, for every viewer this weekend, they'll be able to see an NWSL game to a global audience, and it gives you a preview of what we do. It's once you play along, once you understand the content that you're serving, you'd never leave, and it's really noticeable that in that we have a rich stream of data that shows that if Sport Buff is enabled over Twitch content, if the viewer is enabled and playing along, then we see sometimes up to 10, even 20 times longer view time, which is, again, as a broadcaster, is something that's we really need to happen. Incidentally, I was speaking to Peter Hutton, head of global partnerships at Facebook, and they have very similar experience. When people are engaged using the tools that they provide, then that retention, that view time becomes much greater, exposing sponsors, etc. But aside from that NWSL, which is a sort of a Twitch extension, we also have a very our longest partner is with Atta Football, again an American women's soccer platform, again global content. We are able to gamify the Premier League, English Premier League, the Women's Premier League in England with Sport Buff. And again, that's a live content. Again, it's a really, really good experience. And when we're with partners like that, we're always iterating the product. So we've just had a couple of new features have come on this last week, where we can have a slider emoji from when you rate an experience, but also announcement buffs where we can serve additional data into or additional information into any particular stream that people are watching and enjoying. We're also working closely with Party Poker across their streams and channels, again gamifying the experience, allowing people to give their opinion, to play along. And to go right the way back to, we had an award-winning campaign with FIFA where because we can not just serve live content, but we can also really enhance and enrich archive content, and that to rights holders, to broadcasters, is really, really important, because people have seen the old games, they've watched along over many years, but now we can give a whole new experience to that by serving trivia over the top questions, etc. So again, it's another form of content that we really, really enhance.
Yeah, what's the editorial challenge there? I mean, where's the line between you're just serving pop-up stuff that keeps people engaged and keeps people interacting with their screens, and something that either a rights holder or a broadcast partner is going to say, this actually is going to bring people into our world a little bit more, and help them learn more about the game or the league or the people involved.
Yeah, I mean, that edutainment side of things is really important, and it's a fine line, as you say. You're absolutely correct about prediction of what do you remember as happening, but also every goal scorer. Then you've got an ability to ask questions about his career, about how many goals he got in any particular season, and a lot of our success as well has been enhancing modern vogue for watch along events, or sidecasting, as a lot of people, of course, are calling them now. Because again, that's a community. It's a community that are watching the event. And therefore, if you could gamify that experience, if you could get them all competing together, that's what people are looking for. That's what the next generation are looking for, is that community feel, but also a personalized experience. And that's exactly what Sport Buff allows you to do.
It's interesting that you're working in those two worlds kind of simultaneously a little bit. So you have your partnerships in the esports space, and you've talked a lot about the Twitch extension and working in that world. Where would you say the cultural development is between those two spaces, between people who are watching content somewhere like Twitch, where all of those community elements, a lot of those interactive elements, direct monetization is already built in, and audiences who are more used to the lean back traditional broadcast experience, but perhaps their behavior, as you said at the start, is their behavior is already existing, but it's not offered through the live product. It's offered somewhere elsewhere simultaneously.
Yeah, I think the difference that we see between our partners in esports that are stream on Twitch, etc., and perhaps more traditional broadcasters is the understanding of innovation, if you like. So partners on Twitch, they're looking to enhance the experience, because they're I think the average age of viewers on Twitch is under 30, so, or under 33. So there's a natural propensity to want to interact, and you need to serve them. I think with broadcasters, because the model is working, it's running, there's no need for real innovation to change. What they need to identify is that, as we spoke about earlier on, is that there is a dilution of their audience, because they're missing out in time on that younger generation. So I understand the world of linear broadcasters. I understand that there isn't the need or the opportunity really to innovate yet, because it's not, you need to do this tomorrow, you need to do this the next day. But it is something that needs to happen, and it's something that needs to happen relatively quickly. So the awful thing about COVID was that people were stuck at home. People didn't have live sport, but the broadcasters realized there was a need for innovation. So they made progress over a few months that would have happened over the course of the next years. And I think that's given a spur to a lot of these major broadcasters to understand that there is a need to change. There is a need to provide interaction with their content. And so there's very much two sort of ways of looking at it. You have young partnerships with innovative, forward-looking brands that understand the real need to speak to this younger audience, and a more traditional broadcaster that needs to offer choice. It needs to cater for that lean back experience, that premier sport experience on a big screen with your family around you. But they also essentially need to offer choice and interaction to those that want it. That's really, really important. And I think that's what Sky did back in when I was there. But it offered choice, it offered more. And I think broadcasters need to do that. Essentially, we have all these digital channels now, and devices, and the experience, the program that's delivered to all those devices is the same as the linear one. And surely the technology is there to now enable them to be truly interactive experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're referring to the interactive sports coverage that came out when Sky went into digital satellite broadcasting. What's the difference between when was that, about 22, 23 years ago? What's the difference between that era and the appetite among audiences for that type of experience then, and what we're seeing now in digital broadcasting and in the OTT space, and live streaming and interactive streams. What's the difference in audience appetite and audience behavior that we're seeing?
Well, I think audiences now understand from the rest of their media what they can do. So if they're interacting with influencers or their friends on Instagram, they're used to that experience. Back in sort of the days of player cam, etc., it was something different, but it wasn't truly interactive. You could switch between your cameras. But the main difference is now is that people are looking for a really personalized experience, and they're looking for that sense of community. So they're looking to be in contact with their friends the whole time, and they're looking to receive information that is personal to them. So in a way, Owen, when you watch a game, there are certain places that you will visit to get the information that's adding to your experience. What Sport Buffers can do is to bring that unique experience by letting you play against your friends. The friends that you're talking to on WhatsApp or on Twitter are within your experience across the main broadcast. That information on, betting information that you'd go looking for, that can be delivered across your content as well. And even as we talked about earlier, that merchandise experience, so that if we're getting towards half time and you normally might book a pizza or even something like that, it's personal enough to be able in time to deliver exactly that to you.
Okay, and where is this, just to wrap up, where is all of this going over the next couple of years? What are some of the milestones that you're looking out for in terms of adoption, and how is this going to change the broadcast experience for a lot of fans?
I think what needs to happen is that this interactive experience needs to be available to all viewers that want it. It needs to be ubiquitous, and we need to change the way that viewers are interacting with their content, because, and Peter Hutton said it really nicely, we shouldn't be asking our viewers anymore what we want to watch. We need to be asking our viewers what we want to do. Over the next few years, there's going to be major events, major tournaments that will be using gamification. There will be major broadcasters that will be switching on gamification with Sport Buff. And when that happens, it will be a domino effect. I think this will be the norm, as is Twitter at the moment, as is Instagram or WhatsApp. Essentially, people will be buffing over everything, any data, any content that they really want to.
The SportsPro Podcast is published by SportsPro Media. The producer is Ed Dixon.